parties should not use the land issue for political points and games. It sounds as if that's what you as the ANC have done. Apart from the fact that you capitulated to the EFF's call for expropriation without compensation, your president is traversing the length and breadth of the globe, assuring investors, assuring traditional leadership and chiefs, yet you tell your voters that you will expropriate without compensation. You're not serious about this?
No, we're not electioneering. We can't use land to electioneer. It's an imported tool socially for our people and also economically.
When did you find that out in 25 years of history?
Remember, if we're electioneering, you could blame us in 1994. There was the PAC in 1994. It's not the EFF to start today. The PAC was putting pressure for the land issue to be expropriated without compensation in 1994. And the ANC still in 1994 said there must be mixture of ownership. There must be the state that is able to own the land. The people must be able to own the land. And the private individual must still be able to own the land, including communal land. The issue of our economy, it's a mixed economy. So because South Africa is a mixed economy, we need to also have the ownership that mirrors our economy. Because if you have an ownership that does not mirror the economy, you will not be able to function either socially or as an economy.
Fair
so
enough,
it is not for the first time that there's a land debate.
How are you going to expropriate and keep investors happy at the same time?
We are going to do it in certain defined circumstances, which was defined by the Ready to Govern document of the ANC. It has spoken about a vacant land. It spoke about land held purely for speculation. It has spoken about land that is not being used. And Errol spoke about that. And it shows the example of the land that is not being used, which is here in South Africa, which you can be able to expropriate.
EFF, you talking about nationalization in your speeches, but a careful look at your manifesto, you're talking about government custodianship. And you say that is going to happen gradually, not the now that you claim in your manifesto. Where do you stand?
No, I think that's a mistake that has been made by certain analysts. There is no shift. We talk about state ownership and custodianship. There's no contradiction there. The land was owned by the people as a whole. The Freedom Charter that the ANC claims to believe in says that the wealth of the country must be restored to the people. That means that before that, it was owned collectively by the people. So it's a simple distinction between us and the position of the ANC and the DA. They believe in individual, private ownership of land. We believe in collective ownership by all South Africans. So theirs is not a mixed economy, it's a mixed up economy.
It's like social. Is it socialism? Is it socialism? I mean, that's what economists are saying. They're saying a few things are going to happen. Agriculture, we'll get to that in just a moment. Agriculture is going to collapse. Our economy will suffer. The land itself is going to lose its value. And then we're going to be like Zimbabwe and Venezuela queuing for days for just medicine and bread. Are you listening to that at all?
Yeah. No, those are scare tactics. You see, for example, the thing about Zimbabwe is the most nonsensical comparison. We talk about collective ownership by the people of South Africa as a whole, black and white. How do you compare that to some marauding so-called war veterans who go and kill people and take land and so on? Those are just scaremongering tactics.
We have a corrupt state as well. How can you trust them to do what is just?
I agree fully with the audience. The state is corrupt. But listen to this.
Attending to that corruption.
No, you're not attending to it.
Attending to that corruption.
No, Musasa must wait. Let's just say the point about corruption. You see, corruption.
Okay, give him a chance to finish. There are other panelists we have to go to.
Okay.
You'll respond shortly.
The issue about corruption is that to stop corruption, you must combat corruption. You don't stop corruption by changing the economic system. For example, if you want to stop corruption of traffic cops, you stop corruption in the traffic cops. You don't say, let's privatize the traffic cops.
Okay. Yeah. Let's hear from the DA. I called it willing buyer, willing seller deliberately because you're saying, as the Democratic Alliance, you have to have compensation. It sounds like the ANC's tried and failed willing buyer, willing seller model. And I'm curious, where are you going to get the money to compensate all these farmers? How realistic is your plan?
Really, we are not saying that we believe in willing buyer, willing seller.
Well, expropriate and compensate is? What
we are saying is that we must redress the past, the injustices of the past. And I think all political parties agree that that must be done. But the difference between us, the EFF, and the ANC is that we believe in individual rights. We believe that people must own their own land. As a black person myself, I would not like to have the state own my property.
What do you do
I
with
would
the
like to
landless
deal with
then?
my
Because you're
property.
talking about title deeds. I mean, that works for people who've been living on that land for many, many years. It doesn't quite work for those who don't have any place
It
of...
does, really. It does. It does work. It does work because as the DA, we believe in land reform according to the prescripts of the Constitution. We believe in redistribution. We believe in land tenure security. We believe in all three of the programs of land reform. It's just that we've got to apply it properly because that's where the ANC failed. in the
Mazimbuko, help us
application.
out here. Help us out here. Does she have a point that we should look out for the individual? The individual must be empowered. And I know the DA has also raised concerns about corruption. Are we right to be concerned about those issues?
The view of handing land over to private ownership is entirely wrong. The world over, wherever there's been privatization of land, it has been captured by a few ultimately. Yes, our state is corrupt. It is our state. We must fix it. That is absolutely important. Land is a public good. It belongs to all of us, and it must be held in perpetuity. So we need land reform that does not privatize land. That is why then the role of the state is important. But over and above that, tenure must be secure. Rights of people must be clearly defined. That's absolutely crucial. That's where then the discussion must take place. And then also questions of what happens after the land is redistributed.
What do you mean by secure tenure?
For example,
If
there
it's
must be
not
protection against mining interests, which the DA and the ANC support. Communities' rights to land must be protected. That's a fight in Kolobeni. Further, the role of traditional leaders must not be abused such that the rights of communities are affected negatively. That's very important.
Okay, hold that thought. I'll give you a chance. When we come back, Ruth, Ernest, Togo Didiza, you're all going to speak in just a moment. Have you made up your mind, by the way, which land plan is best? You've heard our panelists define it, correct it, debate it. Vote Big Debate on Land, live on SABC2 and SABC News Channel 404. Why is land so bound up with race in South Africa? Well, we just heard rapper Momulimi singing about the struggle for land. Let's talk to him. He's actually a farmer, and you grew up in a farm. Why is a young man like you singing about farming and land?
With me, it's a natural progression. You know, farming is a generational business, you know. So I'm so fortunate that my parents raised me on a farm while I and my siblings together. So the love of farming came natural over the years as I was growing up. So, I mean, that's a very serious component to agriculture as it is.
And you are in your own fight as well. I mean, things are not perfect. Your
Yes.
father, if I understand, has been leasing that land out for about 38. It's been leased to your family for over
Yes.
38 years. Tell us about some of the struggles that you are experiencing.
I myself have applied for state land for the last 10 years. I have proved to that end, and both in Northwest and in the Free State province. And I've had no joy. But fortunately, because my father occupies a piece of land, I've continued with my business. The downside to that is because we do not have a title deed, we do not have surety. So we cannot raise funds to improve.
But you're wearing the T-shirts of the guys who are responsible for that.
Look, the ANC is our government of the day, and because there's 60 million of us, it must serve all of us equally, and therefore does not mean that each and every one of us has become rich. So I myself have had a lot of help from the Department of Agriculture in the Northwest region.
Now you tell us. Now you tell us. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's speak to the Khoisan, represented here by the chief. Let's hear from you. Talk to us about what your struggles are as the Khoisan people. The way we are handling the land debate in South Africa, do you feel it's inclusive? Do you feel that your grievances are being heard?
When it comes to the land, Ainkwas, Gangans, the land is sacred. We're missing the point. Government is just another form of a big business. The land is sacred. And what people don't speak about is the whole question of when you understand land, you understand custodianship and stewardship. What does that mean? Nobody's speaking about that. Where does the land come from? From the Great Spirit Creator. And
Who
therefore,
owns this land? Who owns this land? Who should own this land right now in South Africa?
nobody but the Great Spirit Creator owns it. We can only be the custodians. And therefore, once you use the land, you then become accountable. And that is where stewardship comes in. And that means, stewardship means, and I think for 25 years we're missing the pot. Stewardship means you get the land and you leave it to the people that's coming behind you in a better state.
What do we do with the currently landless now?
The problem is we have connected it with money. This system called capitalism started with mercantilism. We were colonized.
Let's give AfriForum a chance. Let's give AfriForum a chance. Let's give AfriForum a chance. You are hearing the history. You are hearing how young people, black people, want a place, belonging, recognition, a country that represents their dreams and their aspirations. I've just remembered, Kali, as I was looking at you just now, that you were one of the founders of the Dinukeng scenarios, which was really such a positive initiative to map out the scenarios that we hope for our country. That was over 10 years ago. Surely, justice and land distribution, land restitution must have been uppermost in those scenarios. Did you think about it at all? Where do you place it?
Well, I think it's very important that we address poverty in this country. It's one of the biggest challenges that we all have a responsibility to take on. If you look specifically at land, former President Kgalema Motlanthe did a study, and he said why restitution and land reform failed was because of corruption and lack of capacity. And those issues need to be addressed. We're in favor of restitution. If people lost their land in a way that was not acceptable, it must be restituted. But what is happening now, we're looking for the problem in the wrong place. The problem is not the current systems we have. It won't help us to change the constitution. It would actually worsen the situation. And I think we should look at the broader picture. I don't have land. The vast majority of AfriForum members, only 7% of our members are farmers. 93% don't have land. But what we do realize is if you don't respect property rights, you get
but Kali,
disinvestment.
do you accept that land is a race issue? I mean, the figures speak for themselves. The land audit that was published last year, it talks about 7% ownership in urban areas for black people and 1.7 white people, 23. And then I know, Ernest, you dispute some of those figures. I'll give you a chance to speak to that as well. Do you accept that it is a race issue and it is time that those who have land, and especially those who have more than what they need, must share it with the rest of the population?
Of course, we need to develop farmers from all communities, including black farmers. But we should not twist statistics. When you say, for instance, 72% of the land is owned by so-called white commercial farmers, you are only referring to 72% of 30%. At this stage, white commercial farmers only own 22% of the total area of the country. Government owns more.
Let him finish. Go, Kali, quickly. Go, Kali. Let him finish.
No,
Let him finish. Quickly, Kali.
No, I think people should not listen to the ANC and EFF's propaganda. They should focus on
Okay,
the reality.
let's hear from Ernst as well. Let's hear from Ernst. You also support partially some of the argument that Kali has put forward about land ownership and the figures. And you're saying that black people actually own about 48% of the land. I don't see it where I live, but you're saying 48% based on the consortiums, based on mining, based on the value of the land and the transfer that happened when the apartheid government came to its knees. You dispute the figures. What must happen now?
Yes, after our land audit was published, it was quite interesting. In Parliament, the Minister of Land Affairs was asked what were the current figures of land occupation in South Africa, not necessarily ownership. You're talking the homelands, that's land occupation. There's no real ownership of land in those areas. And he came up with a figure of 37% black occupation of land in South Africa. That puts
occupation ownership?
Occupation ownership, the lot. One
But
figure,
those are not the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing, right?
No, it's not the same
It's not the
thing.
same
That's the
thing.
point.
Because
Actually,
farm workers are occupying the land, but they don't live there and they get evicted. And we'll talk about the security of tenure bill, which has been now taken back to Parliament, and those are the people who are going to suffer the most. Very quickly finish your point. I'm bringing you in here, Ruth.
Yes. Don't forget that in the homeland areas, they also don't own the land, they occupy the land. So we're saying that if you take ownership in that, and that counts for a lot, that's 18 million hectares in South Africa. That counts for a lot of the land which is currently being occupied. And then you add to that the land that has gone into ownership, 12 million hectares on land reform.
We can't go through all the figures, but Ruth, the long and short of it is they're disputing the numbers. Is that significant to the debate? I know that you promote a rights-based approach to land ownership and the land debate. What do you say? Help us, bring it all together for us.
Okay. What I would argue is that nobody has a good handle on the numbers, but anyone living in this country knows that racial inequality in land has not been addressed at all adequately, right? We're still in the starting blocks. 25 years into democracy, less than 10% of white-owned commercial farmland has moved into black hands. And we know that the model isn't actually right. So even if we carried on doing the same thing at scale, we're going to be messing up. Recently, the Director General of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries announced that they're going to put most of their money this year into supporting 450 farmers. Now there are around 250,000 black farming households in this country who are producing for markets, and yet government is supporting a very small portion. So what I would say is we need to change the model. We need to redistribute more at scale. We need to subdivide. We need to get land in the right places, which is where people want it. In urban areas, in peri-urban areas, in the areas where farm workers have been evicted, in the areas around the communal areas where people are congested. So let's have a land reform that's targeted in terms of who should be benefiting, so that we don't just target a small elite, and let's have it spatially targeted and break up big farms and use them in different ways.
I mean, Tawadidiza, there you are chairing this you're chairing this ad hoc committee, and yet you are a member of parliament, you're chairing this ad hoc committee. You belong to a party that is making all sorts of promises. But in Parliament on Friday, we heard the likes of Albie Sachs, Wim Trengove, Advocate Ngubaitlogi, actually saying that you don't need this constitutional amendment, but you've already promised your voters that you're going to do it. What's going on here?
Well, I think if we can put it this way, last year in Parliament in 2018, the EFF put a motion and amended by the ANC and other parties to actually ask a question to the citizenry. Is there a problem with Section 25 of the Constitution? Does it need to be amended, or it doesn't need to be amended? And those consultations went across the country. People expressed their views, not only on the Constitution, but also on the model, as Ruth is saying, and some of the frustrations that people are experiencing with the current process of land reform. At the end of it, Parliament's Committee on Constitutional Review, in their own assessment, having listened to everybody, said we should amend the Constitution. So where we are now, having taken that collective view of what citizens are saying, we are in that process.
But you've told Bloomberg recently that it's going to be a year before we do anything. So why are you making these
promises?
Remember,
there is a constitutional process. We're a constitutional state. And when the EFF, ANC, and all other parties in Parliament participated in the process, they participated knowingly that it has to be done in accordance with the law of the land.
Everybody happy? Sharp, sharp.
It's not about all of us are happy.
But
if
it's a process, it's a constitutional
you don't
process.
have a decree.
Let her finish the point, because I asked the question.
You actually don't have a situation where one can wake up and decree that something must happen. There are processes, and I think all of us have agreed to be bound by those processes.
When we return, we look for positive land restitution into their own hands, finding new models that actually work. In Mdukajani, in KwaZulu-Natal, there's a project where farm workers now own the land communally and use it to feed local people. Watch this. The land in this case was bought for the workers by a company as part of their corporate social investment. The biggest challenge, of course, for the community now is to get water for irrigation. Let's just listen.
One plus sliding back, where we were farming peaches, farming and exporting. But now, through the land reform that is dragging, there is post-settlement support.
So you want to feed the community?
I'm talking of food sovereignty, the choice, the right to food. And secondly, as a beneficiary of land reform under restitution, Mem Titisa handed over the 2 portions in Puamplatz Leidenberg, where we were farming peaches, farming and exporting. But now, through the land reform that is dragging, there is post-settlement support. We don't even see it with an eye. We can't access those recap funds.
Okay.
So that's why we are staying small. I don't call myself small, but we will put it small-scale farmers. And at Lamusa, we are promoting that, especially women and youth.
Indeed.
Use your yard that you've got to produce, and we have our own markets on the R25 and 11. You go there with your scuttle and your wheelbarrow, and in 5 minutes it's bought.
Okay,
It's done.
I want to bring
and
in
lastly,
Cass
let me
from
say,
let's just pause
Okay,
for a
yeah.
little. Theo, Cass, I want you to come in here. What we're hearing is that the support and the investment in this kind of project that has been described is lacking, that we are focused on the big landowners. We are focused on the big markets and not the people who need to survive right here, right now. Why are we not investing? Why is the private sector and bankers not supporting these initiatives and Mo Molini's
I think
one?
those are the issues we need to discuss.
We are discussing,
yeah,
so what do you say?
It's not just the big guys. We have projects that are working. We have projects that are successful. The question we should be asking is, in our land reform initiatives, what do we do to enable projects like that to get the support
What do you
that they
think
need?
we should do?
So for instance, speaking from the banking community, we can finance people that have security of tenure. We can finance people where we can actually have some security over what we're financing. Now,
Okay, hold on.
if that's...
Hold on. This is interesting. This is important.
And that's because... And
That's
that's
important.
because we lend your money. Your money.
It's your money that's being lent. Okay.
Okay. So if we don't have security, if we
So
don't
it's
get
not safe to lend
money
it to
back in
small
some way,
farmers.
then that money
It's not
doesn't
safe
come
to
back.
lend it to small farmers who have
Well,
no security.
I don't know the lady's particular circumstance.
Yeah,
all
generally.
I'm saying is that whether you're a small farmer or a big farmer, if there's some security that the bank can take.
You want collateral. You want collateral.
Yeah, some
but
form
the
of
ANC
collateral.
must take some responsibility for this. Hold on. The ANC must take some responsibility for this. 2002, you amended the mandate of the Land Bank, the Land and Agriculture Bank Act, where you're actually saying that the bank must be a commercial bank and it must support farmers against security. Who's got security in this country of ours?
Yeah, and
I think if I can come in,
Okay. Former Minister of Agriculture is going to speak to this.
if I can come in ready, the amendment of that legislation was as a result of the court case by the 4 banks who were actually arguing that the prerogative of Land Bank and the preferences that they were having were actually undesirable for the commercial sector. So it wasn't, yes, it was
What are
an
you
amendment
disputing?
as a result of that legislation.
That's a sparkling admission. The Land Bank was formed for generations. It was supporting Afrikaner farmers, white farmers. Yeah. And people were renting land for R1 for a year.
So they must do
and
the
now
same for-
suddenly
I think it is
introduce
a-
security.
No.
And she says that it was at the behest of the banks.
No.
That's exactly what we
Can I
suspected.
just
Not on
clarify?
behalf of the
Finish.
people.
Let it finish. Finish. Carry on. We can pick you
So
up.
policy is driven by the banks.
No.
Okay. Finish.
Dali, as a lawyer, you know very well the rule of law. When a decision has been made by the courts, you comply. So you
Mazibuko,
cannot
what do you
change-
say here? I mean, you've got something
cannot
similar. What do you
change-
say here? Phil, I'm coming to you next.
There's no
Mazibuko.
such rule of law.
Okay, let Mazibuko speak. No. Let's give other people speak. Let's get other people to speak. We're going to run out of time. Mazibuko, hold on. This is very important. Let's go to someone else. You are members of the same party. Let's give someone a chance. I'm coming.
I know the minister was speaking for the
Those are
ANC.
artificial.
She was
Those are
speaking for
artificial
ANC.
boundaries. Those are artificial boundaries. Those are artificial boundaries.
ANC has
Let's
answered.
quickly.
What former Minister Divisa is saying is basically the ANC is not prepared to build a public sector banking institution in this country, and also to promote cooperative banking. We don't have to depend on private banks to finance farming.
Exactly.
Public sector banking and cooperative banking is the way.
Theo, quickly. Theo.
What Dali is attributing to the land bank
Okay, listen to this.
was not the land bank. There was a special financing mechanism that brought South African agriculture to where it is now, and it was called the Landboukredietraad.
The Agricultural Credit Board.
Nowhere in the world have we seen successful transformation of smallholder agriculture to profitable agriculture without longer-term financing that what is available in the market at lower rates than what is available in the market. What we need now is for these smallholders to be organized in cooperatives. And these cooperatives...
But they already are. That's what they say.
They are not. What is being called cooperatives
Let's listen.
today.
Let's listen.
Because I've seen it myself.
Okay, everybody
I
just listen.
visited
Let
them.
it finish.
I went onto their farms. I've listened to their frustrations. They are delivered to the state as a bank through recap, and the state is not a good bank. We need a specialized institution.
Who's going to make that happen?
Such as the agricultural credit
Okay.
board.
All right. After the break, we see how you at home voted in our poll.